What up, Salvador Briggman here, and welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I'm the host of the show, and I started this podcast in 2015 to share with you exactly what you got to do if you want to raise funding from the crowd. If you want to hear from entrepreneurs, creators, artists, people that are in the trenches right now that are trying to raise money via crowdfunding, tune into this episode every single week because I put out episodes literally on exactly that. We have hundreds of episodes in the archives sharing with you the case studies that I've assembled in terms of what works exactly to get funding from the crowd. And also, if you are showing up, I commend you so much for getting access to the right information, putting yourself in a position to succeed, becoming success-oriented, and really being willing to identify a gap between where you are and where you want to go, and being willing to listen to the right voices to help you move your life forward in this area. You could be wanting to come out with a new product. You could be wanting to impact the world for the positive with maybe a new creative endeavor, like a new film or a new book, or even have people be joyful and give them a board game or a tabletop, which you've been working on, and allow people to make memories, right, from that. So whatever it is that's brought you to this podcast, I commend you, like I said, and really my community is designed to help you get there much, much faster. When it comes to today's episode specifically, we are going to be talking to the nonprofit founders and people who are looking to have more of like a cause-related impact on the world. So if you've been thinking about using crowdfunding as a way to raise money for your nonprofit organization, or you've been thinking about using crowdfunding to raise money for a cause that you think other people might rally behind and care about passionately, and you're really wondering, how do I do that? How do I go from having this idea of a nonprofit or a cause that I want to raise money for and really put that into action? What I've done is on this episode, we are compiling 10 other nonprofit crowdfunding and fundraising experts who are going to share with you exactly how to do that. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's podcast episode, which again is focused on nonprofit crowdfunding. Maybe you could be thinking about doing a campaign recently or in the next couple of weeks, or you're thinking about in the future one day starting a nonprofit organization. I think you could really be surprised by some of the advice and tips that are shared in today's episode. In addition, I do have a great free course out there for you if you're interested in learning more about nonprofit crowdfunding. This free course goes through not only the major platforms and strategies and tools which you can use to raise money as a nonprofit organization using peer-to-peer fundraising and crowdfunding, but also it's going to show you how to really go from someone who has nothing or no digital marketing presence to going out there and having a full-fledged brand out there on social media, via website, and how to get all that ball rolling. So if that sounds interesting to you and you're wondering how to get donors for your nonprofit, the link to that is crowdcrux.com/nonprofit course, or crowdcrux.com/nonprofit course, and you'll be getting the step-by-step process to raise money from the crowd as a nonprofit organization. Thank you so much, and I just want to get into today's episode, and hopefully you enjoy it, and if you do, give me a positive rating and review. It's coming up right after this.
I guess I would remind people that we have all become weird. That the normal distribution with the big bulge in the middle of the people who give to the United Way and the Boy Scouts, that mass stuff for mass audiences doesn't work for hotels, it doesn't work for political candidates, and it doesn't work for fundraising anymore. That the curve is melting, that people given a choice take a choice, that on iTunes or Netflix or anywhere they get a choice, they take a choice. And so making average stuff for average people, doing an average gala for average people, making an average pitch to average people isn't going to scale anymore. We've got to find the edge cases, the people who care, the people who through their actions have already indicated this is something they're dying to get involved in. Those people are worth all of our time. Let the average people deal with someone else.
First, there's a common misconception that grants are actually a top way that nonprofits are bringing in money to operate. That is actually not true. Individual donations are the top way that organizations raise money across the country every year. In fact, they make up about 70 to 75% of all donations made across the United States each year. So it's a really good idea if you are a new or small or medium-sized organization to be really working on cultivating great relationships with individual donors. Individual donations can take a lot of forms. They can be one-time or occasional small gifts here and there. They can be responses to a campaign or a fundraising email or letter that you send out. They can be recurring donations, which means that a donor has very generously decided to commit a certain amount of money to your organization every single month. Sometimes this is even automatically withdrawn from their bank account. So if you can set up a system like that, it'll really help you sleep well at night because you can count on those donations coming in each month. Another way that individuals make donations is through major gifts. Now, what a major gift is depends on your organization. Smaller organizations may consider a gift to be major if it's $500 or $1,000 or $2,000, whereas larger organizations might look at a major gift as something more like $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000. Getting a major gift can take a while because it takes a little bit of time to build a trusting relationship with a donor who might be inclined to make such a sizable donation to you, but it is totally worth it to get started building those relationships early.
This is, we're going to put the number 20%, and here we're going to put 80%. Okay. Now this is a very standard mathematical equation that probably most of you know, which says that 20% of our donors give us 80% of our money. And when we say donors, I'm talking about individuals, corporations, foundations. We'll put government money and earned income sort of outside of that picture. So what does this relationship mean? It means that if we want to make our budget every year or reach the goal for our campaign, we need to make sure we know who these 20% of the people are. And by people, again, I mean corporations, foundations, and individuals. And we better make sure that we have strong relationships with those folks.
Partner with a local restaurant and do sort of pay for water donation or a % tip on top of tip for a local cause they care about. Works in particularly well, I'd say, with local causes aligned with that. Okay, next topic, drives. These are things that we're raising in a cluster and group. Workplace giving is a big one where you're in the workplace. You can work with charities.org to do this in order to get part of people's donations out of their paychecks to be given to you on a regular drive. You can do a penny drive, classic, toss up a penny, collect a lot of them, then you have a lot of money.
Create a dynamic asking environment. See, letters, emails, and grants are static methods of asking for donations. When a donor reads the ask statement in an email or an appeal letter, they are left with a yes or no decision whether to give. There is no opportunity to ask questions and no opportunity to discuss alternatives. Even a live auction ask at a gala is mostly a static ask. However, meeting a donor in person creates a dynamic situation. As the conversation unfolds, you can read the donor and adjust your tactics. It also allows you to share exciting news, field questions, and address objections. You simply can't do this in a grant or an email, and rarely at a gala.
Let's say, for example, maybe you're a nonprofit and you've got a pretty good group of volunteers who are really excited about you, but maybe you don't have a lot of seed money to, say, invest up front in a fundraiser. So, for example, if you're going to do a large dinner or a fancy banquet, there's going to be a lot of expenses up front. You have to reserve a hall, you have to put a down payment on something, you have to get a caterer, those kinds of things. So what you want to do is, so you've got this large group of volunteers and maybe you don't have a lot of seed money, let's find something that they can go out and do that maybe doesn't require a lot of that, other than some marketing. So something like, a jogathon or an event where volunteers are giving back. There's a lot of local organizations that will make a donation to your nonprofit through the work of your volunteers. So looking for things like that. That might be another way. Again, start with your resources and kind of building from there.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist, and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, That is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
Education and spreading a nonprofit's mission are the primary goals of an awareness campaign, and peer-to-peer fundraising is perfectly suited to deliver on these goals. Who better to spread the word about your mission and programs than your supporters? As they promote your organization to their communities, send them updates, images, and success stories to help them excite more people about the work you do.
Always make the most of peer-to-peer's opportunities to educate both longtime and new supporters on how the organization started and the type of people you help.
One of the easiest ways to access corporate money is actually matching gifts. With every dollar or donation that an employee of the company gives to your nonprofit or organization, the company will match their gift. It's a really easy way to double or triple their donation towards your nonprofit or your organization. But to do so, you have to have a plan and you have to present it to the company. Of course, there are other ways to get revenue and support from corporations like in-kind donations and grants. But you have to think of every way the corporation can help your nonprofit or your organization and present their CSR team with these things.
Tip 2, make someone accountable. Look at your team and choose someone to manage and oversee your corporate sponsors, whether it's a savvy business person or a motivated volunteer. Create and develop a corporate program within your nonprofit organization and treat the effort seriously. It is important to build and maintain these corporate relationships, so choose someone who is responsible and accountable.
Think about your inner circle of key supporters and then maybe the next layer. How do you get your friends' friends to give? How do you get your friends to advocate for the campaign and ask others to do so? The few campaigns that go nuts and people are giving from all over the world, I mean, those ones are often like, the Boston bombing, right? And the guy who had his legs, blown off, unfortunately. And so that's going to go worldwide because it's a worldwide story. But more often than not, these are hyper-local stories that touch a community. And so if positioned right, I think it can really go rampant through the community. And I think it's something you can be really excited about if random people give, but I think if you go into it with that as the expectation, then you don't end up preparing properly and getting the tools so that you can work your network.
The way you want to think about social media is that it is a broadcasting medium, number one. Number two, you can put out content and you can do this for free. And number three, this is almost like a hook where when you put out a bit of content, if someone watches that, they pay attention to that, they engage with it, then they're going to become much more interested in the cause that you're talking about. So you can put out statistics. You could share an individual story of a person in a third world country who tried to start a business but didn't really know how. They didn't have the right education. So your organization provided that education. They then went from just not having the know-how to be able to have a thriving store in a third world country. Like, that is a transformation, man. That is incredible, right? So if you can demonstrate that and you can put out content that gets people's attention, that gets them interested in your cause, they're going to start to become a part of this top part of this fundraising funnel, which is generating awareness, right? This is a free way to generate awareness. In the olden days, you might have had to own a newspaper. You might have had to own a television station. You might have had to go on TV, go on the radio to try to drum up awareness. You might have to go from door to door or send out physical mailers to be able to get their attention. Nowadays, you can do all of that. You don't have to do any of that. All you gotta do is have a Facebook account, have an Instagram account, have a LinkedIn profile, have a basic social media presence, and that unlocks this entire group of people who are using these different platforms already. So it's kind of like you're late to the party, right? You're late to the party. You're finally now at the party. There are tons of people there. Who do you start talking to? Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and if you are ready to raise money from the crowd as a nonprofit, first of all, I think it's awesome that you are really working to make a positive impact out there in the world. You're trying to help an in-need demographic, and you're wondering how to do that. And a lot of the times what's holding you back is funding. A lot of the times the resources that you have access to are actually incredibly important when it comes to making ethical impact on the world. But I don't think that should be the case. And that's really what I've dedicated my life to doing, which is sharing high quality education for free. I'd say 99% of my information I put out there on my podcast, my YouTube channel, my blog is free. And every once in a while, I discover some really great tactics and tricks which you can employ to your campaign to have massive results. And then when I do discover something like that, I package it, I put in all the hard work to really put that into a slender guide or a slender volume, and I deliver that to you. And that's when it's a small investment to get access to that high quality 2.0 information that can help you get from point A to point B much, much faster. So if that sounds interesting to you and you really liked today's podcast, I've actually compiled a guide where I've interviewed over 20 other successful nonprofit fundraising campaign creators and really laid out the tactics and the tricks behind a successful online fundraising campaign, from preparing a launch to getting traffic to getting donors and also getting media coverage. And I call this guide Secret Nonprofit Fundraising Tricks. So if you want to learn more about that guide, which I put together for you, I've recently actually unveiled this. I've been having a lot of people in the community really like the work when it comes to that, what I've put together there. And it has been a long time in the making. So I really hope that this, accelerates you on the path. And if you're ready to check this out, go to the link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/nonprofit tricks. I'll include that link in the show notes, but that link is crowdcrux.com/nonprofit tricks. And you can learn more about this slender volume, this slender guide that's really meant to be put into action. This isn't something you just read and forget about, right? Or some major, bland, boring theory. This is really about what you got to do from a paint by numbers formula, employ it, use it, and begin to get some results from it. I hope you enjoy it. I also collaborated with this guide as well with Rachel Dindy, who's one of my writers at CrowdCrux. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll include the link down below. But regardless, go out there this week, take some action, kick ass, take names. Don't be afraid to really go for what you want to in life. Ignore the naysayers when it comes to people who say that you're crazy. And number one, always be aware of the enemy. And that enemy is procrastination. Thank you so much. My name is Sal, and I will see you next time.